The Okinawa Prefecture is Japan's most tropical escape, a collection of 160 islands that can feel more Philippines than Fuji. Just 3 hours from Tokyo, both Okinawa Island itself and its capital city Naha cater to a Japanese itinerary wanting something different. Not only because of its historic castle grounds, relaxing bike rides around nearby islands, and one of the largest aquariums in the world, but because everything here has its own Okinawan flair, and we love it. Japanese shops are lined with palm trees, their best local dishes have so many surprising twists, and there's also an American village, a bizarrely themed experience we'll explain later. So if you think you know Japan, this video should present you with yet another side. Along with Chiaki, who's from Japan, we make travel movies from around the world, hoping you might just find your next holiday inspiration. This is Suitcase Monkey, with a suggested trip over 4 days around Naha, Okinawa. For the best introduction to Naha and Okinawa in general, look no further than Kokusai Dori. Stretching 2 kilometers, this high street is unlike any other in Japan, and that's not just because you can be served coffee by this no-faced monster, which is either the most endearing business idea ever or the most concerning. Instead, this road is unique because of the surprising number of Okinawan influences that sit proudly on its sleeve. From signs of the locally produced Orion beer to Okinawan mythology to the insane amount of spam merchandise everywhere, and we will explain why later, to the wide selection of glassware and pottery, yet another regional skill. In fact, just a short walk from Kokusai Dori is the Tsuboya District, a quaint cobbled neighbourhood that dedicates itself to these locally produced ceramics and is well worth the short walk for a potential souvenir. Looking back though, over all our lunches and dinners we had during our entire month in Japan, some of our best dishes were around Kokusai Dori, with the restaurants all falling under 3 distinct categories. First, you'll find numerous diners featuring live Okinawan music. Most easily described as Japanese folk, it has a very distinct sound. And it was here where I not only enjoyed my first champaru, a local stir-fry favourite, but also a single glass of this, habushu, or under its other name, snake wine. Adding further to the unique nature of walking around Kokusai Dori, you'll frequently see these coiled up snakes, and it all comes back to this drink. Dating back to 14th century Okinawa, these vipers are placed in jars of herbs and honey, with the added alcohol dissolving their venom over time. This reptile association gave it the marketing position as a sort of libido-boosting energy drink, much like a better version of Prime today, only without the poison. The second category of diner here was usually 1 or 2 streets removed from Kokusai Dori. These would feel a lot less touristy, typically sharing a collection of plates, some with no spoken English at all, but some with an English menu. And if you are wondering, I too have heard really good things about the ass chicken. It is very eggy though. But out of all of these, our favourite was probably Tsukumo. I'll link our other preferred restaurants and hotel that we stayed in the description down below, with all attractions featured in this video on one free downloadable PDF guide. The last category of diner we enjoyed in Naha were all found inside this one building, a massive food court where you could spend half an hour just trying to pick your favourite. The 2 times we ate here, both restaurants had a QR code to order through your phone, which auto-translated to English when trying to choose, something we experienced a bunch of times over our final few weeks in Japan. We ended our first night with a couple of drinks at this cozy jazz bar and then headed back to our hotel, sitting on the far end of Kokusai Dori. The room was pretty standard for Japan, but perfect for its location, with a mini kitchenette and much needed clothes washer dryer. Again, all details are linked below. Tomorrow we'll be exploring further north, taking a popular day trip that would share some of the best highlights around the entire island. For those unaware, our time in Okinawa was part of a 3-month trip around Asia, and for every country we always used an eSIM to stay connected online. So here's an offer for your next trip with the sponsor of this video, SIM Local. If you haven't used an eSIM before, it allows you to keep using your existing SIM, so all your usual phone calls and messages still work like normal, but you then have a second electronic SIM that handles your data when abroad, and at a much lower price than if you were roaming with a standard package. SIM Local have a top Trustpilot review score, and you can set everything up before you fly, so you'll have internet access right away. There's a wide range of data allowances and price points for hundreds of countries, so you can find what fits best for you. They even have Europe-wide and global packages if you're jumping between countries, so one plan will cover everything. And since you prepay, you can use your phone to find the best restaurants or search for public transport options, all with no danger of spending more than you planned. So use the link below or QR code for wherever you're traveling to next and get a 10% discount whenever you add the code Suitcase Monkey. Over the course of 9 hours, our island tour would take in 5 different stops, ranging from 20 minutes to 2 hours each. It's the easiest way to get a taste beyond the capital, but you could also consider renting a car over a couple of days for those wanting to take things at a slower pace. We were travelling in late January, so all of this is their winter time, with temperatures ranging from 17 to 25 degrees. Situated on the west coast and 90 minutes from Naha is the most visited attraction in all of Okinawa, the Churaumi Aquarium. Once the largest in the world, it's still considered Japan's best and is well worth a couple of hours to explore. Presenting all of Okinawa's sea life, it begins with all the usual exhibits you'd expect from any aquarium. That is, until you reach its most iconic room. The part of today I was certainly most curious about was its finale. On first glance, the American village feels like a bizarre Japanese attempt to recreate the United States. And if military clothing, the Cheers bar, the hometown of Aladdin possibly, whoever this guy is, and pink skyscrapers doesn't scream America to you, then I don't know what will. I do have to admit though, once the power of love belted out across speakers around the village, even I got into it and started walking like an American. This is how they walk, isn't it? The background to the American village though is once again another Okinawan surprise. After World War II, Okinawa was under administrative US control for almost 30 years, and it was during this time the region was heavily influenced by American culture, and this is where Okinawa's love for Spam originates. Since the canned meat was a popular food ration for US soldiers, it was then passed on via the military as an affordable meal for a rebuilding nation, and even still today, Okinawans consume 7 million tins of Spam every single year, and it all dates back to this post-war era. And so, after Okinawa was handed back to Japan in '72, the local authorities built an American-themed village. partly to kickstart their economy with tourism, but also to provide a familiar spot for the local military bases. Although this all initially seemed like a bizarre idea, by the time we needed to leave, I kinda wanted to stay just a little longer. Tomorrow would be another early wake up, and for the first time we'd be stepping foot off Okinawa Island and visiting somewhere a little more peaceful. Zamami Island is a short 50-minute high-speed ferry from Naha's Tomari port. During the summer months, it's most visited for its beaches, snorkeling and scuba dives, with January to March best for whale watching or simply those wanting a peaceful island escape. With a population of less than 1,000, it has a very relaxed small town feel. The nice man who cooked our lunch, for example, was also the same nice man who helped us board the ferry. This calming, underdeveloped nature quickly rubs off on you, and it's enjoyable just breathing in the fresh air. After talking with staff at the visitors centre, they suggested a bike rental service a short walk away, which was essentially just someone's back gate with an attached honesty box. What we hadn't realised is that by visiting at the end of January, even though it was a pleasant 23 degrees, we pretty much had the entire island to ourselves. Taking the first and last high-speed ferry means you only get about 6 hours for a day trip here, but that probably is enough. These winter months may not offer much for some people, but this day still sits as one of my favourite Okinawa memories, especially after getting this surprise sighting. Our last day would be exploring 3 different areas just a short monorail or bus ride away from downtown Naha. Shuri Castle is a former royal palace dating back 700 years, making it the most visited historic site on the island. This neighbouring district was previously the political capital of Okinawa, or as it was known then, the Ryukyu Kingdom, ruling for 450 years. Unfortunately, due to a devastating fire in 2019, the castle is currently undergoing heavy reconstruction, estimated for a 2026 completion. You do have to admire their effort for turning the rebuilding process into part of its story, making the regeneration a display in itself, but it does obviously impact the overall experience in the meantime. I still think it's worth a visit if you have the time though, especially when its neighbourhood is still enjoyable for an aimless wander. Travelling to the south side of the island, we next made a trip to Umikaji Terace, probably the most unique food court I've ever witnessed. A trendy complex split over 4 stories, it boasts more than 40 restaurants, cafes and boutiques, all of which give you a stunning front row seat to the Naha International Airport. Now, I've never been much of a flying nerd, but it turns out there is something surprisingly enjoyable about hunting for an appropriate food snack around this terrace and then watching aeroplanes land over the seas in front. This Okinawan taco rice serving was an unexpected tasty fusion of Japanese cuisine and Tex-Mex, yet another American influence, mixing rice and omelette with beef tacos. Chiaki also really loved this super fresh seafood restaurant, especially this tuna, served here with a side serving of umi budo. Yet another local speciality, it's otherwise known as sea grapes, and they're actually a type of seaweed with a subtly sweet but crispy taste. The last ace that Umikaji Terace has up its sleeves though are its hot springs. If you really want to spoil yourselves, then the Ryujin Hot Springs bathhouse is definitely worth a visit. But due to time, we instead opted for this free, faster foot bath. If you are daunted by showing another Japanese man your meat and 2 veg, this is probably your next best bet. That is, if you can ignore the waiting taxi drivers in front and the sound of booming jets. Our final stop for the day then was back nearer Kokusai Dori. The Okinawa Museum is the best place for those wanting to learn more about the fascinating, lesser-known history for these islands, although it was admittedly a little, shall we say, Japanese in its execution. Firstly, it's important to note that along with photography, pencils are allowed here, which was certainly a weight off my mind. After buying our tickets, we walked around the first room and then quickly realised there must be an audio guide that we missed on entry. So we went back to the museum entrance to inquire and were told to collect the audio guides from the library, which I don't know why we didn't think of that. The collection process then involved filling out a form for some reason, and then you're handed this. A large clipboard with an attached digital pencil, which now made sense of this. Anywho, this pen attaches to a set of wired headphones, and to select English, you touch an American flag, because they invented English. After we got through all of this, the system then worked as you'd expect, with some interesting little known history around the Ryukyu Kingdom, the Battle of Okinawa, and the island as of today. In summary, carrying a weighty clipboard around for an hour will give you armache, and unfortunately the cable for the headphones isn't quite long enough, so it kind of pulls at your head the whole time. So yeah, it's a good idea with some interesting history and questionable execution. But for £2.70, it was fine. I'll finish off this video with our robot waiter, who seemed to be having a bit of a nervous twitch about him, but I did see him snorting a Duracell in the back, so... If you have made it this far, then I'm very sorry for you, but do check out our 11 videos deep Japan playlist with so many more tips and travel suggestions. Everything featured in this video is linked in the description below, along with the Sim Local discount for wherever you're traveling to next. As ever, thanks for watching, Suitcase Monkey.